Welcome to the Anacortes City Council meeting of April 8th, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Franciac, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Fantini.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath. Ms. Moulton. Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hubick.
Here.
Thank you.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, announcements and committee reports. I've got a couple of quick announcements. Just a reminder that next week at 4 p.m., Monday the 15th, Department of Ecology will have a public meeting that we will host in the Anacortes City Council chambers, and that's the A Avenue landfill public comment. Also, a reminder, mark your calendars, Saturday, April 20th, 9 to 12. It's a very popular residential spring cleanup day. Again, get all your household cleaning done and bring your residential garbage and yard waste to our operational facility. No charge. You just have to show that you're a resident in Anacortes. And then also that day, it seems appropriate, that afternoon, there'll be a number of Earth Day events in town, the 20th, and a parade at 5 and another at 8 p.m. First is the parade of the I'm getting it wrong, procession of the species, followed by a luminary parade at 8 p.m. So that's all I have. And council committee reports, Housing Affordability and Community Services Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
The Housing Affordability and Community Services Committee met Thursday of last week, April 4th, to talk about the May 9th visit from the Senate Committee on Local Government, Land Use, and Tribal Affairs. We are preparing an agenda for a meeting with them where we can talk about some of the housing issues in Anacortes, some of the potential solutions, some of the progress that we have made. And I think that we are next scheduled to meet this coming Thursday.
Okay, next is the Planning Committee, but I believe that was canceled. It's normally right before this meeting. Okay, so we'll move on to Public Safety Committee.
Miller.
Ms. Hubick.
Thank you. Public Safety met back on the 2nd with an update from the fire department. The academy has pretty much completed for their new hires. Graduation is happening this Friday the 12th. And shifts will start being filled in after that. So Chief Harris gave us the update that everything is on schedule for full deployment of the new unit shifts starting July 1st. They have had a few water rescue events, but other than that, they are getting ready for their normal spring and early summer stuff. And then they wanted to let us know that the next publication of the A-Town magazine will have an article about the FireWise program and fire protection program. So as we get ready to head into the dry summer months, it will give us an update of what's possible for the city and then what citizens can be doing for fire prevention. Then we had Chief Floyd give us an update about the Regional Basic Law Enforcement Academy. They were thinking that it was going to be held out in Mount Vernon at Skagit Valley College. It has since been relocated to Arlington, which is a little bit further than Mount Vernon, obviously, but it's a lot better than going all the way out to Burien for a lot of their new hires. They are still going to be able to provide instructors as much as they can for the classes out in Arlington, and it looks like the first class could actually happen this summer, which would be great. For staffing with public safety, the police, as of December, they were at 100% of the allocated 2023 numbers, and they are adding to the levy lid position total for 2024. And then Chief Floyd also let us know that the virtual reality training system that they have been given approval to purchase has been bought. It will be coming here soon, and so they'll get everything set up for it. Really excited about the program. It'll be a great tool for the new hires that are coming in, and the thought is also that it will be something that can be used to help train the Citizens Academy in the future as well, even though the timing isn't quite right for this year. And that's it.
Any other announcements or committee reports? Any questions for the committees from non-committee members? Okay, moving on to item 4. This is public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public that wishes to address the council on anything that is not on our agenda. We have contracts on the agenda tonight, so I'll just go right to public comment, and I appreciate you all signing up, and neat handwriting, but I still might butcher your name, so when you come up to the microphone, please say your name and the city you live in for the record. First up, I have Connie Russell signed up. EMS levy is the topic, so come on up. And again, even if I say your name correctly, go ahead and say your name again and city you live in.
Connie Russell, Anacortes. In my opinion, the EMS levy proposal that's been presented to Skagit County voters is both deceptive and excessive for the following reasons. Number one, the explanation of the rate increase. The rate increase quoted in the voters' pamphlet indicates, quote, the renewed levy would be imposed at a rate of 47 cents or less per thousand of assessed valuation, which is a 3% increase from the rate approved by voters in 2018, unquote. That statement is true, but a very important missing fact is due to the significant increase in assessed property values from 2018 to 2024. The EMS levy is actually currently 30 cents per thousand. So the EMS levy increase being requested is actually 30 cents per thousand to 47 cents per thousand. Number two is the revenue to be generated. The voter pamphlet does not provide information as to the actual increase in the revenue proposed that will be generated. However, EMS has indicated that if the proposed levy is approved, the current revenue of $9.7 million annually will increase to $14.4 million. That's a 48.4% increase. Number three, the impact on property taxes. The voter pamphlet fails to provide information as to the estimated annual impact of this proposal on taxpayers. However, various published sites have indicated that the rate increase for property assessed at $555,000 will be an additional $94.35 per year. And number four, the Anacortes ambulance budget. The 2024 Anacortes city budget shows that ambulance services for salary and wages will increase 49% this year. With this significant staff increase already included in the Anacortes city budget, what is the need and how will additional funds for the county EMS levy be used? For all of these reasons, I urge you to vote no on Proposition 1. Force the county to come back to voters later in 2024 with a more realistic rate increase and a more transparent explanation of the rationale. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Bill Collins, and topic is 5th Street Habitat.
Is pressed to talk?
I think it's already on if the light's on.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank you for canceling that roundabout there at Safeway. Mr. Fantini, thank you for standing up for that.
And if you could say your name one more time in the microphone and
Oh, I
and a
want to
little
thank,
bit- your name,
Mr.
your name,
Oh, sorry, Bill Collins, and
and you
on
live in
37th
Anacortes, correct?
What?
You live in Anacortes.
Yeah, Anacortes, 37th Street,
Thanks.
neighbor with Mr. Fantini. First thing, thank you for the canceling the roundabout there at the Safeway. Mr. Fantini, I think you had a lot to do on that. The second one is some comments on the Habitat for Humanity. I'd like for the council to arrange a meeting for the community and have the council there, the architect, and the Habitat folks, and anybody else that would provide input for that, and have a little meeting with the residents, those who are affected, so we can understand what the plan is. I've heard a lot of comments, the plan is too small, it's not too many people, blah, 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 but what is it going to be really? And I think that would calm down some of the residents, because they don't really understand, I don't think they understand, at least I don't, how are you going to get all these people and cars and stuff into this little plot with 5 residences. So maybe somebody can help us with that, and so we can understand it better. Maybe we'll vote for it, or somewhat, you know, maybe 2 residents rather than 2 residences rather than 5. I don't know. Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Next up is Beth Bell, and subtopic is Cinema and 5th Street Habitat.
Hi, Beth Bell, Anacortes, movie theater. I'll keep this one short. After watching and listening to the last couple of meetings, it saddens me how this simple change in the lease agreement was not only handled, but how you voted. It was asked, what is your agenda? I too asked that question. Do you plan to take over this building in 2026? I'm asking for transparency. On the 5th Street, Habitat for Humanity. Affordable housing. I would really like the City Council to clearly define what affordable housing is, and or contact me as to where I can find that definition. History lesson. Fidalgo Flats was allowed 5 levels, stating it would be affordable. Is it? Who monitors it? It's not the city. So how can you stipulate we will allow 5 levels and then not monitor how those rates are applied? The other area that was owned by the city, I believe, was between 21st and 20th off of Commercial and Q. The townhouses went in there, supposedly to be affordable housing. They start at $516,000. According to a brochure that was recently reviewed, the average income of Anacortes is $80,000. How is 516, 545, 649 affordable? We have affordable housing between the Anacortes Housing Authority, between the Anacortes Family Center, the parallel 49 apartments that just went in. Top of D Avenue is supposed to be affordable housing where the Testament property was. The other issue that I have with Habitat for Humanity is that there is no parking, no storage. There's nothing in the plan with regard to how the facilities are going to be maintained. And the city hasn't made concessions in the past with regard to parking. Why are we starting now? I believe that you're setting a dangerous precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up I have Linnea McCord, and topic is 5th Street Habitat.
Linnea McCord, Anacortes. So I'll put some context in this. The purpose of the building, the words you're going to hear, climate change, affordable housing, changing the Growth Management Act, they have a purpose. It's banning single-family residences. How do I know? I come from California. I'm a refugee from California. California now allows up to 4 dwellings, as many as 2 duplexes or 2 houses with attached units, to be built on almost any lot currently zoned for a single-family residence without local approval. Only cities are allowed to veto the development when there is a threat to health and safety, historic districts, or fire hazard zones. Now here's democracy in action in California. More than 250 cities opposed it. They said there's no price caps. or other assurances of affordability. It will destroy the character of the single-family neighborhoods, drive down property values, undermines the ability of local governments to responsibly plan for the types of housing that the communities need, circumvents the local government review process, and silences community voices. Now, why would we be doing this? Like I said, I invite everyone in the council and in Anacortes to look up the World Economic Forum. And while you're at it, go to the United Nations International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives.org, ICLEI.org. Olympia is a member of that organization. Fascinating. And Olympia, in its 2021 Community Greenhouse Gas Emissions Reduction Strategy Analysis, can you imagine who created it for them? ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, October 9th, 2023. So this is coming from the World Economic Forum through the United Nations. The United Nations is not our buddy. They're not our friend. They don't care about our freedom. But they certainly care about our housing and our affordability and climate change. And AI says that ICLI is an international organization for local governments that plays a crucial role in promoting sustainable development and addressing pressing urban challenges. And one of those challenges is affordable housing. And in that context, it says, Anacortes, Washington, let's explore how ICLEI and local initiatives are addressing affordable housing. So if you go to the World Economic Forum, you'll see they're exceedingly concerned about affordable housing, about climate change, about changing everything. And what they want is a 15-minute city that you won't be able to travel, that you don't need a car, and they will tell you what to drive, how to drive, if to drive, and they will determine everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Becky Mifflin, Habitat Fifth Street.
Hi, Becky Mifflin, Anacortes. I am strongly against Habitat, or for that matter, anyone else building 5 houses on the parcel on West 5th Street. Why weren't we, the neighbors, advised of the city wanting to build these houses? There has been zero signage or letters sent to us. Yet, on December 14, 2022, Ryan Walters posted the following on Facebook, and now he has deleted it. Why did you delete your post, Councilman Walters? Sorry, I apologize for that. Here you go. Habitat for Humanity is coming to Anacortes. Our Housing Affordability and Community Services Committee has worked with Habitat for more than a year on this project to ensure long-term affordability and maximum utilization. 5 1,200 square foot cottages of the limited vacant property the city owns. We're excited to finalize the paperwork and get moving to help 5 families build equity in homes they can afford. This is from Facebook, like I said, December 14th, 2022. If you notice, he stated that the city has worked with Habitat for over a year. That means 2021. In 2.5 years, I would think that the city council could have reached out to our neighborhood for input and posted signage at the property. Not a darn thing. I asked the council members to reconsider these 5 houses and build only 2 houses, or better yet, leave it as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Suzanne Rohner, Anacortes Cinemas is the topic.
Suzanne Rohner, Anacortes. Thank you for this opportunity. I was here last week about the cinema, and I'm back. I have more to say. I didn't have enough time last time. I'm very concerned we're going to lose our theater. A small town theater is part of our shared American culture, and I hate to see it go. Currently, anyone who wants to purchase a cinema building and assume the land lease must have at least 5 years' experience in the movie theater business. The current tenant is asking that the lease be modified to allow a subleasee to satisfy that requirement. This ask is not unreasonable for the following reasons, which appeared in the March 27th Anacortes American. A council member stated that they learned from 3 former city council members that generated the original lease in 2001 that they viewed the lease as temporary and their intent was to ensure the theater would be successful. And number 2, the current tenant and owner of the building questions her own compliance with the requirements of the lease since the death of her husband in May of 2021. She stated, "I don't have any experience in operating a movie projector or the digital projectors or knowing where to order a movie screen. So technically, as far as I'm concerned, I do not consider myself having experience in the movie industry." So why is the council so adamant that the 5-year experience clause apply to any future owner when the current owner has been out of compliance since May of 2021? The council's opposition to modifying this lease is confounding. There was concern the potential purchaser wanted to take over the whole property, including the parking lot. This concern was squelched by the mayor, who stated the council would have to approve any changes in use of the property. Other council members were concerned that amending the lease would make the property more valuable and result in a higher asking price. It is unclear why any change in the value and the asking price would be of any concern to the council. The value of any property is determined by what a buyer is willing to pay and what a seller is willing to accept. The Anacortes American reported the current owner saying she is considering demolishing the building and paying the remainder of the lease through 2026. In the same article, a council member stated, "It is incorrect that the cinema would go away in 26 if the property owner cannot sell the building." The member also said the building would revert to the city's ownership in that scenario, and there is no reason the city could not rent out the theater, unless, of course, the theater has been demolished. I am again questioning the motivation of the city council's actions. I am again asking the council if their ultimate goal is to regain control of the property, the sooner the better, and build multi-level, multi-family housing on that land. I asked that question last week and have not gotten a response. I'm asking it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have anybody else that signed up, but okay, I see 2 hands, so, and the green, I guess, okay, it doesn't matter to me. You can work it out, and as long as you come on up and state your name and where you live and keep your remarks to 3 minutes, it'll be good.
Xuan Mu, Anacortes. Thank you. After reviewing Council Member Mr. Waters' response, we have concerns on the following. First, there is a financial impact on the city's balance sheet for gifting a public property to the Skagit County Habitat for Humanity. Second, because of the legal hurdle for gifting public property, there can be legal liability and the financial exposure to the city. 3, as for choosing 5 units instead of 2 units for the parcel, Mr. Waters responded, the rationale is to make the most progress toward improving housing affordability and availability in Anacortes. Housing affordability is driven by the income of the home buyers versus home prices. It is driven by the demand and the supply of the local housing market, employment rates, wages, and the central bank monetary policy. What appears to be the driver for the 5 units is the lot is slightly over 15,000 square feet, and the new code, the minimum requirement for a single-family unit is 3,000. So 15,000 divided by 3,000, that's why 5. That's the maximum density possible for the square footage for that parcel. Is the denser the better? The answer is no, for both the tenants and the existing neighbors, for reasons many of the neighbors have already voiced. Lastly, Council members Waters stated, the project support compatibility with existing neighborhoods by promoting high-quality design. As for how, the explanation is The new code was developed to ensure the compatibility as well as the high quality design. Therefore, the compatibility is not evaluated on a project by project basis. This logic is flawed. It is called circular reasoning. I still have time. I will give an example. Circular reasoning is A is true and B is automatically true. So I say this book is written by a space alien. Why? Because this book says so. So that is a logic that we have a hard time to understand. In summary, we strongly object the habitat proposal as presented in February 2024 agenda. Let's not chase the maximum density allowed by the current code at the expense of common sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I saw one other hand up, and yep, come on up.
Kelly List, Anacortes. West Street City Build. Here's excerpts from a letter from Tina Tate of Habitat to the volunteers. The council members are getting pushback from neighbors on West 5th and have heard little from supporters. She then encourages them to email, call, and attend meetings. She further states, if you'd like an example of what to write or say, please contact, and she gives a name. She continues, the city is the driving force and wants to lease this piece of property to Skagit Habitat to build 5 cottage homes. Volunteer response. When I first heard about the planned Habitat build on West 5th, I eagerly took the training to be a construction volunteer. My enthusiasm ended when it was revealed that 5 houses were to be built on a lot that is marginally large enough for 2. Yes, there is strong neighborhood pushback against the project as it is currently designed, as it will undoubtedly greatly change the character and the quality of the neighborhood. Isn't Habitat concerned about keeping the spirit of goodwill with neighbors in the places they build? So instead of trying to get Habitat volunteers to lobby the council, it would be very much appreciated if Habitat would ask the council to modify the plan, such as we understand that the neighbors are strongly opposed to this plan. We suggest that the plan is modified to limit the build to 2 houses in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. This will maintain a spirit of goodwill with the neighbors, some of which we're planning to help the build. Tina responds, yes, Habitat wants to keep goodwill with the neighbors neighborhoods we build in. The city council and HAC's team had asked for 5 units on that property, and that is what we presented. We are not opposed to reducing the number of units, but it is entirely up to the city since it is their property. My comments. This clearly implies that the city is working behind the scenes with Habitat to build support for their agenda with the purpose of outnumbering and marginalizing the neighbors' concerns. Habitat is launching a corporate lobbyist campaign to promote this build regardless of the impact on the neighborhood, shrugging their proverbial shoulders and saying, it's not us, we're just doing what the city asks. This does not engender much trust in their willingness to have goodwill with the neighbors, or much faith in their building a functional, sustainable housing project. To be clear, I am not faulting volunteers. I am concerned that their support of this project with limited information will be valued by this city council. It is easy to support a plan that doesn't impact your daily life, neighborhood, or your city ward. To Habitat, as well as the city council, Tina said, they are hardworking, everyday people. Well, so are we. We're hardworking, good people, and we should be regarded just as highly as the clients you will bring into the neighborhood. Please listen to us when we say this. This overcrowded plan will compromise our diverse little neighborhood and negatively impact our daily lives. Besides, we want a plan that your clients, our future neighbors, will love too. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Public comment? I forgot to check online. Okay, I will move on to our consent agenda, items A and B. Council.
Miller,
Ms. Hubick.
I make a motion to approve consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hubick, a second by Mr. Young to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to item 6, which is other business. Item 6A, this is a contract award. Anacortes Climate Element. This is a discussion item with possible action, and Mr. Coleman will be presenting.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So, as we discussed at our last meeting, the city received a $500,000 grant from the Department of Commerce, which the council accepted at last week's meeting. Now we're at the point where we're going to spend that money. So, as for background, House Bill 1181 requires that every comprehensive plan in the city's planning for under Growth Management Act have to have a climate element in their comprehensive plan. So that element is new and requires some technical studies that we obviously can't do at the staff level. So to put together that document, we've enlisted the help of Makers Architecture to lead the climate element development. That's what's on your agenda today is a request to approve that contract with Makers. Makers also is using Parametrics as a subcontractor to do some of the further studies, the greenhouse gas emissions test, greenhouse gas emissions inventory in particular, and assistance with that issue in the public review process. This document also includes a scope of work, and that's Exhibit A of the document, and that document clearly lays out what's expected of the consultants. It also includes the timelines explaining when various parts of the project are going to be taken. Now, those are very general. We also we're drafting a more legible timeline for people to see in chart form, and that's actually available as part of a different project going on at the Planning Commission level. We had a first meeting to review our public participation plan at the last Planning Commission meeting, and then the next Planning Commission meeting, we're having a public hearing on that public participation plan, which again will have that timeline related to this work, and that public participation plan includes this work as well as the rest of the comprehensive plan work, and talks to a certain extent about how they're all tied together. And Council Member Walters last week talked about how with this climate element, it really has far-reaching effects into the other elements, such as the transportation element and the capital facilities element. And yes, it is a big, hairy mess, is one way to explain it. And we're doing our best to make sure that all of those tendrils from each of those elements are all cohesive. Hence the name comprehensive plan. So the timeline gets a little complicated, even though we've tried to simplify it for people to understand. That's a little bit of the background. Ultimately today, what we're asking is for the council to approve contract with Makers in the amount not to exceed $338,351 to develop their comprehensive plan element as required by the Growth Management Act.
And I think that means you're ready for council questions. Council.
I am ready for council questions.
All right.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
So just so that I'm clear, we accepted the $500,000 grant to be used for this process.
Exactly.
Perfect. The second thing I read all of this. I was great with the deliverables. I really appreciate the Planning Commission's work to come up with a very public schedule on participation and all that. I did have one question. It refers several times in this to the Climate Policy Advisory Team, which sounded like it's made up of a couple members of the public, key stakeholders. How are those folks selected for that client? Because they refer to this CPAT team several times throughout the, they're one of the groups that meets about this a lot. How are those people, who are they, and how are they selected?
Well, we have not selected the Climate Policy Advisory Team yet. We're working on those details, seeing how other jurisdictions have handled this in their jurisdiction. So, it could be as simple as the mayor appointing people, and how that process works, we don't know, but it could be council. We want to appointing those people.
Will makers help us with that process?
Yeah,
Or, yeah.
makers, we meet regularly with makers to talk about issues, and that's one issue that we'd like to have some guidance on to see. I think ultimately, though, it's a local decision.
Yeah. We're paying them enough, I guess that's what I'm thinking, that they ought to be able to help us with that and look at other jurisdictions.
Yeah, yes. They're also helping us with a robust public participation. Besides the Climate Policy Advisory Team, we plan to have regular meetings at the Planning Commission. The schedule here identifies when we'll be having drafts of each of the climate element, as well as in our public participation plan, we identify when we anticipate to have drafts of the other elements of the comprehensive plan for review and public comment. We're holding makers to commit to at least 3 in-person presentations from them at key moments during this climate element development to make sure that they're there to help really lead the public participation plan, public participation on this. We also, in the public participation plan, talk about other alternate means for receiving comment on the comprehensive plan and this climate element policy, such as other types of meetings besides just formal meetings in a city council chambers, where we can solicit people's their comments and get people engaged in this process. One of the requirements of this process through the state is to make sure that we're including people that are otherwise don't have the opportunity to participate. So people who work late or don't have access to internet or don't have just maybe language barriers to participating in these. So we're required to have a public outreach program that reaches all segments of the population of the city.
As to your question, I recall as during the 2016 comp plan process, there was also a community advisory committee, and I think that was kind of this built along this will be built along the same lines, I think. That's my guess.
Thank you.
All right, other questions?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. McDougall.
Yeah, for the 2016 process, there was actually, like, my perspective or perception is this is a very well written document. I think it looks great. The 2016 effort was, by my perception, a much larger update to the comp plan. Like this one, the major update is actually the climate aspect of it, and then like fine tuning of the rest of it, or are there significant changes to the comp plan expected as well?
I believe you're speaking from experience as somebody who was on the community advisory committee.
It was about 2 years.
Sorry.
So we anticipate that this element will have reaching effects into those other elements I was talking about. Our transportation element, we're proposing a whole new revamp, and so we also encourage people to participate in that plan. And the Public Works Department spearheading that element. They're creating a traffic master plan that will double as our transportation element of the comp plan. The housing element will be updated to make sure that it's reflects the housing action plan that we passed early last year. Trying to remember what year it is. That was in 2023, early in 2023 when the City Council approved that. So make sure that that's incorporated into it. The land use plan will probably see more than just brush ups because the new population and employment projections, we need to make sure that our land use policies and our zoning map are changed to accommodate our projected growth. So
significant.
This 2025 update is called a periodic update. They happen every 10 years, and they tend to be more significant, much like the 2016 was a significant.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Young.
Thank you. Let's see, of course, Mr. Fantini took a bit of the thunder of what I was about to ask because I had the exact same questions, which was also very good. It seems that Makers does a lot of work for us at the city. Good quality work is what it's really all about. Part of this that I would love to see coming forward too is that, Skagit Transit is in the middle of modifying its future plans, and they've been hosting meetings, throughout Skagit and trying to vision forward where we are and where we want to go from here. And I would sort of the impact of on the environment, I guess my hope is that in those other partners that have stakes in this, that Makers would also reach out to them, because all of them are intertwined and working together. As you said, it is a complex dance that, I use dance, but it's a complex dance of many different factors that need to be evaluated. I'm hoping that, during these presentations that we might have, that we're all having a chance to sort of assess where we are, see the progress that's being made, and at the end of the day, the results of what we as a city should do, could do, are doing, or may not do that impacts this. And so I think that the undergirding principle is fact-finding, and so I'm looking forward to it. But, I guess early on in reading this statement of work or this proposal here, this contract, I'm hoping that Makers will also meet with entities such as Skagit Transit, because they're working on their plan now for Anacortes and Skagit County. So those interworkings are so important, and I'm hoping they can be at the table. I'm sure they may already be, but I want to make sure that they do, and those other things that will impact us here.
So you bring up a good point. The transportation part of our element is highly integrated into the regional transportation. Cars coming to Anacortes are coming from other places or passing through Anacortes from one place to another. So the transportation part is also coordinated through the Skagit Council of Governments, which is all of the cities in the county in the county itself. SCAT has been participating in that regional discussions and coordinating with SCOG on that Skagit Council of Governments. We also, you brought up SCAT as a significant partner in this, as is, our hospital, our school, the port, the refineries. So we do, as part of our public participation plan, list off many of these local organizations and entities that we plan to target to make sure that they're aware of what's going on. The population figures drive schools, capital facilities planning and knowing how many people that they need to accommodate for classrooms and teachers. So all of these population figures highly affect a lot of the entities, not large and small. And so that's why we have this public participation plan, and we identify many of those in that plan.
I totally agree with that approach. I guess just to tweak what I'm making sure of is that, in each of those entities and each of those stakeholders, everybody sort of have a piece of the pie that they're operating under. And, and I'm only using Skagit Transit, or we could use the refineries, but all of those are part of that impact supposedly to climate change and the climate element, as well as our plan for how do we begin to address it. And so I guess, and I know this is beyond you, John, and I know you're going to work on it, and I know you're going to tweak these things that are there. I just wanted to make sure that makers in their assessment of all of these things, that, the delving deeper into, are they really impacting or not? And if they are, what are the mitigating things that can be done to arrest where we're headed in that impact? And then that final result that comes out in the report will be something that we could apply and try to, sort of bring forward as a society, or whatever that is. Thank you. You answered my question, though.
Your SCAT comment is a good segue, because we'll have Skagit Transit next week. I just confirmed that they're able to come to council next week, so could be able to ask them that question directly, and they're tied in anyway. Mr. Walters.
Well, I think that this is exciting work. It will be important, though, to do good work, not for this to simply be a perfunctory addition, but a quality addition to the comp plan. With respect to the 2016 comp plan, I think that could charitably be described as an update. What it really was the first real comprehensive plan that the city had adopted. It replaced a plan that was really only 20 pages in length. This will be not that scale, but it will be a big update, as the planning director reflected. I expect that the schedule, including the schedule in this contract, will be somewhat fluid because it doesn't take into account the 6-month extension that we got from the state. So our plan is now due not midway through 2025, but at the end of 2025. I hope that the planning department will also check in with city council along the way, because there are some choices to be made. For example, the housing action plan that we adopted last year was adopted as a menu to be selected from, not necessarily to do all the items that are in that plan, and the adopting resolution reflects that. We added language to the adopting resolution to make it clear, we didn't spend time debating each and every measure in there because we figured that debate comes later. We just took the work of the consultant and adopted it so that we have completed that exercise, and we have that menu to choose from. Another, for example, we're getting a greenhouse gas inventory as part of this contract. I think that will be very illuminating. We do have one that was created in 2006 as part of the city's climate action plan back then, a plan that was created with the help of ICLEI. Yes, the conspiracy runs deep here. That may be very informative for the rest of the work that we do. What the greenhouse gas inventory reflects. Transportation coordination, I think, is also key, and Mr. Young's point about Skagit Transit is very well taken. Many of these things and the approaches to them can be teased out in the public participation plan, so we look forward to that coming forward. But as I said before, I think we also need to adopt a scope for the comprehensive plan update, because there may be other items that we want to accomplish as part of the update, non-required items, but just things that reflect our vision. So I think it'd be appropriate to talk about that when we talk about the public participation plan. The item in front of us, just this contract, though, I think is ready to go, and will accomplish what we need with respect to the consultant. So I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the contract as presented.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Walters and a second by Mr. Fantini to approve the contract 21-120 PLN 002 with Makers Architecture and Urban Design in the amount of $338,351 to perform Anacortes climate element. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franciak, take the vote, please.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Ms. Hubick,
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next up is item 6B. This is a contract award, Thompson Trail Trestle and Causeway Replacement Project. It's a discussion item, possible action, and I bet Mr. Lunsford has already made his way to the podium, and he has. Mr. Lunsford.
Mayor Miller, thank you, council members. Apologize for my voice in advance of a little bit of a cold. So tonight we have the opportunity to look at this contract before you with Hanson Consulting, and it's regarding the Thompson Trail Trestle feasibility study that we are working on and have been on for some time through a grant with the Recreation Conservation Office. Let's just get going. So it's a partnership, this project, with the City of Anacortes, Samish Indian Nation, and the Washington State Department of Natural Resources. We have some other people that are working on this, other organizations. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has offered their support and consulting with us, which is a great addition to us, as well as working on a future hopeful interlocal with Skagit County to do some more education outreach through the Marine Resource Committee. So the project's a collaborative effort between Samish, Washington State DNR, and the City of Anacortes. The city owns the trail, therefore we're the lead agency. We applied for the grant. So it originated via the grant with the Recreation Conservation Office and their Estuary and Salmon Restoration Program. So it's an environmental conservation grant that also has a recreational purpose to look at the feasibility of replacing the trestle and causeway. So the grant amount that we have right now is $360. The contract before you is $350, and we may come to you in the future with modifications to that if we have other partners joining us. So let's just take a look. So Hanson Professional Services, Inc. The scope of work, in a nutshell, is the feasibility of removing and replacing the existing causeway and trestle. So one of the reasons we're looking at that is the health of the bay, the idea of removing the trestle and the causeway would increase water flow in and help the circulation of the water in the bay, restoring it to what it was prior to that, so 100 years ago, hopefully with improving eelgrass beds and habitat for salmon and salmonoid species. So that's the ultimate goal. And so this is a feasibility study to look at, will that work? What will be the cost of that? And what would that look like? So, as I mentioned before, I think that most people would like to see a trestle that doesn't burn down, is not susceptible to that. We're also looking at a trestle that doesn't have 800 roughly creosote pilings in the bay, and what it would take to remove that and what that would do for the health of the bay, and removing the ancient riprap that's there and understanding what's underneath it. So that's all part of this work. As the mayor and I spoke previously, it's just to get to about 15% this grant, about 15% of the study. We have to go much further, 30, 60%, but the idea is that we do this work, get a sense of it, and bring it back to you as the public's representatives to understand what the community would be committing towards. Do we want to keep going? Do we like what we're learning? Is it helpful? Do we want to go out for larger grants and do more study and then make a plan? Ultimately, this will be a large project, most likely in the tens of millions of dollars. And the community has to be ready for that. We would go for outside sources. This is all grant funding and matched through the Samish Nation, through their generosity that they've received through grants. And the state is helping us as well. So it'd be a large lift for the community and to kind of undo 100 years of environmental degradation and changes there that aren't perhaps the best for Fidalgo Bay. So that's what we're looking at. So you get the chance to review this before we go forward with it. That's the whole essence of the feasibility study and the contract that's here before you. So some elements of that contract are the geotechnical report, essentially understanding what is inside that causeway. We'll be boring into it. For the public, that means we'd be closing the trail periodically with advance notice. These are small boreholes, but to get that rig there and to go down deep enough to understand what's there, we need to, for the public safety, to close the trail periodically to do that. And it would be something that would be short-lived and for the public's safety. And so we would try to avoid large holiday weekends and things of that nature. But that would be something we'd be working on as a city to let folks know about. A bathymetric survey, or a survey of the topography underneath the water, a survey of the land mass as well, of what makes up the causeway, its mass and depth. Studies of what would make a good replacement, an essence of that, because we are not getting into a structural analysis of that at a 15% design. It's very small, but we're looking at more the science. What would be what's going to happen once we start to remove the creosote pilings? How's that going to affect the bay? How are we going to plan to do that without transporting 80 years of polluted sediments around the bay? Can that be done? How would that be done? Those are things that we're going to try to understand. There's a public education element. Part of that will be coming through the final report. Hanson and their crew would come here and talk to you and the public through this forum to let them know what the final report says and to explain that to them. We're working on the side with the MRC, the Marine Resource Committee of the county, to develop a public outreach strategy during the process. The public understands why we're doing it, what we're doing it, making their scientists available. That will come to you in the future. It's not part of this contract. So I hope that in a nutshell gives you a sense of what we're looking at. If you have specific questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer them about this contract.
Mr. Young.
Thank you. Mr. Lunsford, I want to start out with a compliment. The details with which you bring forward your presentations is superb. The depth with which you discuss and try to begin to address the issues that may be associated with any project is comprehensive and very well received. This is no different than that. But again, I do like to pay compliments when we lean into other things. In this case, I really love the idea of a partnership that's taking place. We're beginning to address some of the challenges environmentally for the health of our bay. Whether it's I think Mayor, you and I talked about it once, it was a National Geographic study in the 1970s or somewhere up in there.
Eelgrass.
Yes, okay. But it was stunning. And so where we are now in our quest to sort of recover as much as we can healthily and enjoy the quality of life we do in the very things that we love about what makes Anacortes and Fidalgo Island home, I applaud that. And so I'm looking forward to it, figuring out how we can do it. The mayor and I talked about eelgrass restoration. I've talked to Ms. Hennebert, other stakeholders in trying to assess, do we have enough? Is it enough? And then how do we improve it? Because so much of the crab, the fish, so much of who we are and what we are is surrounding that question. So to get to the bottom of where we really are, whether it's what we need to do, whether it's toxic, whatever it is, we will find out. And so I applaud this and really just I'm glad to see this moving forward. I think questions that anyone may have will be coming forward, and it will create an opportunity for both supportive and opposing views and those in the middle to be able to come forward and learn. And then we'll figure out how do we do it together. But I just really wanted to applaud this effort, and I like what I'm seeing. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
And maybe just for a little more public education on this project, we have a good idea. I think we all know that hundreds of creosote piles are not good for the bay. But what we need to really figure out is, number one, what's inside the riprap, the fill, and this will help us determine. And then ultimately, it'll be for to be able to make that decision for council on, what is the cost benefit to improving the bay and improving the trestle that doesn't catch on fire so easily. Those are kind of my two big things. We get to improve the bay and not have a flammable bridge. Are two good things.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
I've been very supportive of this project for a long time, and I'm really glad to see it moving forward now. This is a great potential project. I think of Taylor Dock in Bellingham, the concrete and steel surface, and the ability to have a smooth surface for bikes and strollers and walkers, while still providing light down below, all steel and cement, no creosote. I understand that creosote might have limited pollutant capability if it's not disturbed, but I understand as well that the removal of the riprap is pretty key to restoring sediment migration around the bay. So I'm very supportive of the project and of this contract to do the work to figure out, what the contours of the potential project would look like. When it comes up, and I expect it will come up in a variety of contexts, how will we fund the resulting project that comes out of this design and more design later? I don't expect the city will ever fund the project. We inherited this trestle. We did not construct it. Well, we twice constructed some repairs, but we inherited this problem, and it's a problem that really belongs to all of us. So DNR has multiple times offered to help us find grant money. There are potentially federal sources of grant money to replace this thing. It will cost in excess of $10 million, and that price tag is going up all the time. So it will never rise to the level of a #1 priority for the city when we have a structure that is currently functioning. So I think it's pretty safe to be able to say the city is not going to put local money in any substantial amount into this. What we are trying to do is facilitate, because we are the owner, we're trying to facilitate the analysis so that we have a price tag so that somebody could come along and write us a check, or as quite likely, quite a few different checks to help pay for the whole project. But the environmental benefit could be very significant, and obviously people have been interested in it for quite some time because of that potential environmental benefit. So I'm excited to see it moving forward. Thank you very much for moving this forward.
Thank you. Mr. Walters.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Hubick?
Thank you. I agree with everything that's been said so far. That water has been here for longer than any of us. It's been longer than the trestle, and it deserves our respect, and we have to take care of it. So I'm really looking forward to the work that's going to be put into this. 15% feels like a very small number, but if it's done correctly, it can answer a lot of questions and provide a lot of guidance to us as we start to move forward on a very big and, yes, very expensive project. So I'll move that the city authorize the mayor to sign contract 23-092-PRK-001 with Hanson Professional Services in the amount of $350,000 to perform the Thompson Trail Trestle and Causeway Replacement Project design.
Motion by Ms. Hubick and a second by Mr. Walters to approve the contract as presented. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franczak, vote please.
Mr. Walters? Yes. Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Mr. Fantini?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next up is item 6C, this contract award, Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, Office 365 renewal. It's a discussion item with possible action, and Ms. Shu is already at the podium, but I probably did not drag it out long enough where you can open your presentation. But there you go. Ms. Shu, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Mayor, council members of the audience, tonight I'm here to present our Office 365 2024 annual renewal. This is the year 2 of a 3-year agreement in the amount of $122,930.45. We participate in the Washington State Master Contract through the NASBO Value Point Agreement that helps to set the pricing for us. As many of you are aware, our subscription services have changed, and so the city basically rents the use of the Microsoft applications. You probably have heard of SaaS, software as a subscription. So it's within the last decade or so has really been a change in the way that we obtain the software services that we need at the city. We do confirm that the government tenancy is hosted within the United States, and that this helps us to meet our PCI, our HIPAA, and our CJIS, our criminal justice requirements. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, questions for Ms. Shu?
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Fantini?
I just have one question. What does CJIS stand for?
The Criminal Justice Information Systems.
Thank you.
So information related to our police department that needs to be secure.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. McDougall?
Just a very quick question. So the general license across the entire city, that covers things like Microsoft Word in the cloud and Excel and kind of the basics. And then everybody's Outlook email. And then is it additional licensing? Well, also the, I guess the collaboration tools that we use, not for city council meetings per se, but committee meetings and just within staff, Microsoft Teams. Are there any other, I know there's other products like the Microsoft's, like PowerPoint or their project management software. Are those tied into this as well, or are those more like individual licenses?
Those are included. So Microsoft has different levels of licenses, and so depending on what the need of the employee member or the council member, we help to determine which license that they get. And some are more robust than others. But yes, you're talking about the PowerPoint, the Teams, the SharePoint servers. Those are included as part of this agreement.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Young?
Ms. Shu, just one point I guess I think it's important to mention. Where we have in the summary the contract piggybacks on Washington State's master contract, Value Point Master Agreement. That affects pricing. That gives us better pricing if we joined in on that versus trying to do it ourselves.
Yes, so when there are master agreements in place, that means that a larger entity has done the negotiation work, and there's an agreement that other entities, and this may not be the right contracting legal word for it, but can piggyback or utilize that same contract. So there's more time to be able to get the services than you need than to have Microsoft taking the time to try and negotiate with each and every entity.
Thank you. You answered my question.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
I appreciate that we're using the software as a services model now. It's substantially easier for limited in-house tech staff to manage versus an on-premises system. Have we yet eliminated all of our on-prem servers?
We have.
Perfect. We did this we switched to software as a service a number of years ago, and there was a phase-out period, and I'm glad to hear that we've made that progress. I think that makes a lot of sense. You pay a slightly higher price, probably, for software as a service, but it also means that you're offloading all of that responsibility to manage the system. Not all of it, because obviously there's some configuration steps that need to happen, but a substantial amount of it to the people that are the experts, which in this case is Microsoft itself. I move that City Council authorize the mayor to sign the contract as presented.
Motion by Mr. Walters and a second by Ms. Hubick to authorize me to sign contract 24-113 ITS 001 with SHI International Corp. in the amount of $122,930.45 for a Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, Office 365 renewal. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franczak, vote please.
Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Mr. Fantini?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, saving the big one for last. Item 6D, this is a contract award, wastewater treatment plant outfall relocation, marine and upland. This is a discussion item with possible action. Mr. Rayum is already there. Mr. Rayum.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Andy Rayum, Public Works Director. Before you is a contract with Strider Construction Incorporated in the amount of $16,532,312. There's some change, but I left that off. To build a new wastewater treatment plant outfall, including 1,631 feet of 48-inch diameter pipe from the plant to the shoreline, 1,030 feet of 42-inch pipe from the shoreline into the Guaymas Channel, and then finally with a 86-foot diffuser at the end of the pipe to discharge the treated sewage. This project is necessary because the current plant outfall pipe was damaged by a storm in 2019. The storm was declared a disaster. FEMA is funding this project 100%. The project will last 400 calendar days once it starts and should be completed sometime in May of 2025. This contract was added to this council meeting late because it was the last meeting before the bids expired. The city needed to either accept a bid or reject all bids by April 14th, which was a Sunday. So I figured you'd rather have it late on the agenda than a special meeting. The original posting of the contract was also erroneous, I'll point out by a resident, which we appreciate that. It had been updated online. It has been updated online and in your packet for consideration tonight. The error was a portion of the contract that was from a version of the contract when this project was 2 different projects. And so it was confusing for that one section, so we just took it out. It was unnecessary to be in the contract to begin with. A couple of other questions which we received in advance, which I appreciate. The project website is up to date and current today. The schedule for the project will be established by the contractor once they are under contract, so they tell us what they're going to do in the phases and the schedule. And then the last part, as part of the contract scope for blasting, blasting is there's a rock and we need to put a 40 some inch pipe into that rock, so we need to blast down into the rock. It's not like a plunger blasting like you saw in cartoons when you were a kid. It's very controlled and intentional. But anyhow, in the scope, the blasting does include a third-party pre-blast survey of all properties within 200 feet of the proposed blasting and surveys post-construction. Of course, you don't have to let them into your house if you don't want to, but it is a service we are offering with the project. And that is my presentation.
Okay, I know there's going to be some questions because I know council, council, you all have been here before with a contract that we tried to do a couple of years ago now, and now we're back. A really important project for our city, but council.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
I appreciate that Public Works has spent quite a number of weeks going through the bids, making sure that they are consistent with the requirements, including the permits that we have for this project. We don't have the entirety of the contract in front of us. We have the agreement and not all of the other contract documents. So we're not able to fully evaluate it, nor is it within most of our skill sets. We probably ought not to try. But I certainly appreciate the public comment that identified a problem with it. I would just ask the city attorney to confirm that she has reviewed the contract.
Ms. Swetnam.
Thanks for the question. I've reviewed the contract a lot. So
figured that had to be the case. Yes.
I think it's a good contract. The contract specialist has spent time with it on the contract. We've worked with the consultant, engineers, and probably spent more time on this contract than any other one we've looked at. So,
as one might expect, because the value of the contract is $16+ million, we just simply don't have a checkbox for that. So can you, Mr. Ayum, can you tell us a little bit about the schedule? Because I know that that's going to be a big ongoing question throughout the 400+ days of the contract.
Tell you a bit more about the schedule, how?
Schedule of the work, and specifically with respect to its potential impacts on neighboring land uses.
So we won't know that until the contractor's on board. They have kind of their latitude on how they see fit to do it. Probably the biggest driving force about which do you do the marine or the upland part first will be dependent on the fish window. So we have some regulations that we can't be out there in the Guaymas Channel doing things during migratory times of the year, and so we have to avoid those. So I imagine if they're getting down to that, they won't start the marine part and they'll keep working on the upland part of the project.
And I think we know when the fish window is because it was in one of the NEPA documents. I hadn't seen the website for the project, which I guess was updated today. Will we be doing affirmative outreach to the neighborhood with the website on an ongoing basis?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, we need to. It's a pretty intense project, for,
Yeah.
especially for the neighborhood.
Okay. So I think that the neighborhood especially, will definitely feel the impacts, but also tenants of the port, other users in that area, traffic transiting through there to go to other neighborhoods. I don't think we can over communicate on this project. So I would encourage us to do as much as we can there.
We did preemptively discuss things with the port, and they're very open and willing to work with us and making sure that, we do coordinate just that because it could impact their operations, so, as well as the neighborhood.
Other questions for Mr. Ayum?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
Would you also just describe how you vetted the contractors? How you confirmed that they are qualified to do this work and will do a good job?
Sure, it was probably the most intense that I've seen. We hired an actual third party outside the design engineering firm to review the packets. We did all the reference checks. We turned over every rock possible. Like the city attorney said, I haven't seen anything like this before for the vetting process. So we're, especially because of the history with this project, I think we want to make sure this one goes smoothly, and so we did everything we could to make sure it goes smoothly.
And as a result, the selected contractor has experience doing this type of in-water work.
Yep.
Plus the blasting.
And the blaster also has experience, yep.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Swetnam?
Just to provide some additional insight on that, we worked with a consultant to build in supplemental criteria that addressed experience with the various challenging aspects of the project, like going through an environmental cleanup site, which is there, the Port's got a log yard cleanup site, also blasting both in terms of the company and in terms of its superintendents and its staff. And so there was really thorough look at the specific qualifications that were necessary for this project. And I think that we built really thoughtful and intentional supplemental criteria, and then did not just a check in the block review of those criteria, but really leaned into the background of the contractor to make the right choice.
And another very important aspect, we've got all the permits now.
We do have the permits at hand, yes.
Maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves before. And, again, you weren't here for this one, Mr. Ayum, but I know you're well aware.
Yes.
All right, other questions?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Young?
In lieu of any further questions, and to get this show on the road, I like that word. I move that City Council authorize the mayor to sign contract 20-032-SEW-009 with Snyder Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $16,532,312.32 to perform the wastewater treatment plant outfall relocation.
Second. Motion by Mr. Young, a second by Mr. McDougall to approve the contract as presented. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franciac?
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hebeck?
Yes.
Mr. Fantini?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we'll get this one done. Item 7 is nothing before the council, so I will adjourn tonight's meeting. Have a good night.